Welcome to the Adaptive Collaborative Podcast, connecting the adaptive community. Hosted by James Norris, founder of Handy Capable Fitness, and Melissa DeChellis, founder of Adaptively Abled Amputees and Adaptively Abled Fitness.
I'm James Norris from Handy Capable Fitness, here with my co-host Melissa DeChellis, and we are super excited to have Matthew Walzer. And if you're not familiar with Matthew, he has an incredible story. His thought process and his tenacity has really changed the adaptive world in a big way. And without further ado, Matthew, I want to welcome you to the Adaptive Collaborative Podcast.
Thanks, James. Hi, everybody. My name is Matthew Walzer. It's so nice to be here tonight with everybody. I'm really excited to share my story with everyone. When I was reached out about doing this a week and a half ago, I was very excited and didn't hesitate. So as James said, my name is Matthew. I am 24 years old. I have spastic diplegic cerebral palsy, and I was born 2 months premature, and almost didn't make it at birth. I spent 5 months in the NICU, and I've come a long way in 24 years, and have overcome a lot in my life. I drive. I'm a college graduate. I'm working, doing social media marketing right now currently. But the reason why you're all here right now tonight, is because for me to share the really cool, unique stuff about me. So I can't tie my shoes. That's the one thing that I've struggled with my entire life. And when I was 16, I decided to write a letter to Nike because I was tired of not being able to tie my shoes, not just because it was inconvenient or annoying, but I had such lofty goals for my life. I wanted to go away to college. I wanted to be as independent as possible, and I wasn't going to let something as rudimentary and as trivial as not being able to put my own shoes on stop me from doing that. And I knew at the time also that I was far from the only person that couldn't put their shoes on. And I wrote the letter. The letter went viral, and I worked with Nike for 3 years. And
I think you may have to read.
Now the Flyease line of swimming. Hello?
So we lost you for a brief moment. Do you mind just repeating that last sentence?
Sure. So I wrote the letter to Nike, which became basically almost an overnight internet sensation. And together we worked on and developed what is now the Flyease line of Nike footwear, which is their adaptive footwear for all. Did I leave anything else out?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head.
We're going to ask you questions that will fill in all the other gaps.
Right.
So I must say,
I got cut off before, but so.
No worries. So I must say I am a proud owner of the Nike Flyease. For anybody on our show tonight that's not familiar with it, it has a very neat zip-on back panel. So myself as an amputee, being able to wrestle a sneaker onto my prosthetic foot sometimes takes two people. And if I need to switch footwear quickly, the Flyease allows me to quickly unzip and slip the foot in and continue without a beat. I use these for CrossFit. If I'm doing a little bit more cardio versus weight training, I'm able to quickly switch in between sneakers. Matthew, I thank you so much. It's made a difference in my life and countless others. So what was that pivotal moment that inspired you to write the Nike letter?
Sure. So it was about 8 years ago now. It was during the summer, and I was at the beach with friends, and I was at the beach a lot that summer, as most summers usually I am at the beach, except this one with everything going on in the world right now. But spending a lot of time socially as a teenager, it was frustrating, you know, being there, wanting to go and leave the beach, get food, come back type of thing as fast as your friends could. But the most annoying thing was not being able to put shoes back on without someone helping me. And as a teenager, even though my friends were nice enough to, of course, help me with anything I needed, you just feel awkward being like stared at like a spectacle. Like you have like 3 other people trying to put this person's shoes on in the middle of a public beach. And it was that coupled with I knew school was coming up, and high school, I was going into my junior year of high school, and I knew college was right around the corner. And as I said in my opening statement, all I wanted to do, you know, for my future at that point was go away to college and be on my own. I felt, for me at the time, that was the ultimate mastery of my independence, what my independence could be. And I got to the point where it's like something has to be done about this, because there's sandals, obviously, and slip-on shoes, but there wasn't cool athletic sneakers at the time that looked just like any other pair of Nikes that you'd pick off a shelf at a store. And it wasn't just for looks, it was for, hey, there's a huge group of people out there, whether it be disabled, arthritis, bad back, or just lazy and don't want to tie their shoes, that can benefit from this.
Now let me ask you, when did you, after you sat down and wrote the letter and developed the hashtag Nike letter, when did you realize, like, oh crap, this is really taking off and this can really, it's gaining steam and we could make some noise with this?
Sure. So
I think we lost you. Melissa, are you still there?
I posted the letter, a bunch of, I was getting a lot of friend requests from people like that went to the same high school as me, but I didn't really know, just so they could read the letter. And so I had my own little like sports blog at the time called Against All Odds. And I posted the letter on there just so everyone kind of had a one-stop shop to go on and read it. And from there, I started posting the letter also on Twitter. And I remember probably about 2 in the morning one night. It was like 11 at night. Sorry, not 2 in the morning. I'm getting ahead of myself here. A sneaker blog that I follow, because let me back up for a second. So I'm a huge sneakerhead. Always have been into shoes since probably elementary school. And that's almost a byproduct of having CP, having a disability, is I always had to find shoes that were not only easy to get on and off, with laces, and I'll go into detail on that in a minute, but they were also comfortable. So I would go into a Foot Locker or a Champs or a Nike outlet, and I would pull whatever they had in my size and just try everything. And my family and I would sometimes spend hours at the store trying different shoes on. So I knew constantly the landscape of what was out there and available. And there was nothing like what I knew that we needed as a population. And so a sneaker blog called Nice Kicks actually picked up my letter and posted an article on their website about it. And that was like the first little drop in the bucket. Like, wow, this could get big. And it just kind of took off from there. And then 3 days after that story was published on their website. Am I frozen?
You were frozen for a second. So if you could just repeat those last few words.
Okay, where'd you hear me leave off?
3 and then 3 days later.
Okay, so 3 days after that article was published on their website, on the Nice Kicks website, that's when Nike reached out to me.
So you go and you get the attention of Nike CEO Mark Parker, and then you have the opportunity to work with Toby Hatfield, one of Nike's innovators, to create a custom pair of Nike Flyease sneakers. What did it feel like to see your idea come to fruition and to put those sneakers on for the very first time?
Well, it wasn't the first pair of shoes that were actually sent to me from them. Those were just kind of a zipper and Velcro, like a zipper up the middle and Velcro around the ankle. It wasn't a rear entry design yet.
Oh. If you can hear us, I think Matthew, you froze again.
3 years of going back and forth and Skype time from. Let me and see if that helps. You might lose me for a second. Hold on.
That's okay.
Okay.
Sorry, guys.
No worries.
I was not anticipating.
Gotta love technology.
Exactly.
Yeah, something is sucking up your bandwidth there. So if you can figure that out, hopefully.
Okay.
It's still delayed.
Yeah. I don't know if you can hear us.
I think it just got worse.
Yeah.
Matthew, do you want to try logging off and logging back on? Maybe that will audio.
Here, Melissa, try to type him a letter. I mean, a note in the chat. Maybe he can only see that.
I'd like to suggest that Matthew turn off his video, if he can. Shut off the video.
Right there. Yep.
Reduce the bandwidth.
Yep. That's a very good idea.
Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, we could hear you.
Okay.
Can you guys hear?
No, I think you might have to log out and then
Can you
log
guys
back
hear
in and
me?
see if that helps. Because you're still cutting out.
Hello.
Yep, I hear
Hello?
you.
That's better. So you said that Nike had sent you a trial pair with a zipper up the middle and then Velcro around the back. I think that's where we lost you. Can you hear us? Okay, I think he's logging back on.
Yeah.
So while
for
we're
the
waiting for
technical
Matthew, are there any questions from the crowd that you would like us to ask Matthew when he logs back on? If you could put them in the chat,
Okay.
we'll make sure that we add them.
Can
towards-
everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Welcome
Okay,
back.
clearly.
We're
We can hear
good.
you clearly now.
Okay, good. But to answer your question, it was a great feeling to put my shoes on independently for the first time. And that was the first of many Flyease prototypes that were sent to me. But above all else, it was putting my shoes on for the first time at 17 was just like an indescribable feeling. It's the equivalent of learning how to ride your bike for the first time when you were a little kid.
Now let me ask you this. When they sent you those prototypes and they figured out something that was going to work for you, did you think that was the end of the story? And what was your reaction when they came to you and said, you know what, we're actually going to take this design and we're going to mass produce it. That way it could help out other people in the same situation.
Right. Well, I mean, as I said before I got cut off with all the connection problems, the first prototype wasn't the end-all, be-all. So when I started working with Toby and Nike, they wanted to know what my needs were, aside from not being able to tie my shoes because of the dexterity in my hand. So I have pretty good dexterity in my left hand. My dexterity in my right hand isn't so great. And on top of the dexterity issues with my hands, I have a lack of dorsal flexion in my feet. So it's hard for me to pronate my foot down into a shoe. So hence that's where the rear entry of Flyease comes into play. And there's a lot of other people that also struggle with this as well, whether having CP or being an amputee. It just makes things simpler and easier. But James, to answer your question, it was great to know that we're going forward and doing this, because it was 3 years of going back and forth on designs, and there always had been such a need for this, and I was so relieved and happy and excited that people's needs were finally going to be met with adaptive footwear.
So your story with Nike continues, and you got to meet the LeBron James. So LeBron James is a superhero for so many. What was it like to have the opportunity to meet him and to work with him on this project?
To meet LeBron was incredible. It was a definite surprise. And just to know that he stands behind this project ongoing. I mean, his shoes are still a part of the Flyease line. And obviously LeBron is such a champion of change, of positive change in our society. Of course, focused on equality and educational opportunities for everybody. So just to know that he was a part of this project, and to meet him, which is a once in a lifetime opportunity, was so special.
I saw that you covered sports for your high school newspaper, and you actually won an award. What led you to take on sports journalism? What kind of opened up that passion?
So sports are my number one thing in my life. It started as a young kid with NASCAR. It still is today my favorite sport. Just the thrill of it is just exhilarating to me. And as I got older, that's when I got more into like stick and ball sports, football, basketball, baseball, more like on a fan following level. But obviously, having CP, it makes it difficult to play sports competitively. And so I said, well, if I can't play sports, then let me write about them. And this is coming from a high school kid. I remember when I went to my middle school orientation, I remember asking them if they let me try out for baseball because I wanted to be a pitcher in middle school. So it's always something that, like, I never, try to let too much get in my way. The baseball tryouts never happened. But I always foresaw myself as not limiting what I am able to do. I mean, when I was younger, I wanted to be a NASCAR driver, like no holds bar. And so writing is still something I like to do today a lot. As James said, I was on I wrote for the sports section of my high school newspaper. And I won an award in my sophomore year of high school for the second best. It kind of stinks I didn't get first place, but second best sports column in my school district. I remember the story was about the draft outlook for the Miami Dolphins going into the 2012 season. And for those of you that really follow football, that's when Andrew Luck was coming out of school, and a lot of people were speculating that the Dolphins could draft him. Obviously, it didn't turn out that way, but that's hearsay. But sports and writing have always been two big passions in my life.
So have you tried any adaptive sports, Matthew?
I did play some adaptive soccer when I was little. I had a lot of fun with that. I also did some Miracle League baseball when I was younger. Soccer was easier for me to do in a competitive but in like a recreational sense with a lot of other people at once than baseball, just because baseball is a lot of, when you're younger, well, the sport doesn't really change, but it's a lot of standing, and it's hot, and it's Florida. So I enjoyed soccer more because you're moving more. And I haven't done wheelchair basketball, but it wouldn't be something that I'm opposed to. And I'd also like to try in the future maybe some wheelchair tennis. My younger brother, who's 13, is a tremendous tennis player, and one of the coaches where he plays wanted to put me in a wheelchair tennis tournament. So that wouldn't be something that I'd be opposed to.
If you're just joining us, we're here with Matthew Walzer. He's the inspiration behind the Nike Flyease shoes. Matthew, you're a recent graduate of Florida Gulf Coast University, and that was your first time, living on your own. What was your experience? What did you like about it? And what did you...
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Because it broke up a little bit, so I wasn't sure if it was you or me. So
did you?
College, and I said this to a friend last night. College was basically hitting the reset button on my entire life. Again, said I had never been. I've never even had a sleepover on my own at that point. So it was a huge learning experience in the sense of I had to do a lot of growing up really fast. Faster than I anticipated in some ways, but I was ready for it. I had to advocate for myself with a lot of stuff. I remember the second night I was there, fall semester freshman year, I got stuck in the garbage trash disposal room of my dorm. Was the door was locked for me inside. I remember having to work with my school to have them put in an automatic door to go into the hallway where my dorm was. It was it was a learning experience for everybody, including the school. And because, as you guys know, I'm sure everyone that's on here knows, having a disability is there are so many types of disabilities and so many varying degrees to all of those disabilities. There's no one size fits all. So what's good for one sometimes isn't the best for everyone. So it was a lot of just learning how to advocate for myself and not being afraid to, diplomatically say, hey, this isn't working for me. Can we make this? Another example, I needed a magnet for the door of my actual dorm. I lived in a single private accessible dorm all 4 years, but I needed a magnet put on the door so when I came in with groceries or something, the door would stay open as I was coming through with my scooter. So let me backtrack for a second. So I walk with loft strain crutches for shorter distance, and then for longer distances, like a college campus, I have a scooter. Growing up, I used a walker and AFO braces for my feet for extra support. And just touching on the shoes for a second, wearing AFOs, obviously you need for those of you that don't know, you need a wider shoe to accommodate the ankle foot orthotic. And so growing up really little, my parents would have to help me put shoes on. Let me turn on my video and see if it works. So can everyone see me and hear me and everything?
Yeah, we can. You're good.
So my parents would have to literally almost smash my shoe over my braces because the shoes that they made for AFOs at the time were just wide enough to fit over braces. And they weren't the most stylish shoes either. So a great thing about Flyease is, as it's evolved, they've made styles available and widths for all across a whole line of sizes to accommodate for people that wear AFOs. So it's just another great aspect of things coming truly full circle for adaptive footwear.
So what did you major in college? And what are you doing with that experience now? We had a chat the other day and you were telling me about your current position. If you could shed some light on that.
Sure. So I majored in business management with a concentration in sports. So sports management. Currently, I am working at a local nonprofit where I live in Florida called Star Ability Foundation. And they provide vocational training and day programs for people with special needs that have aged out of the public school system. And we offer, things are a little bit different right now with COVID going on. 99% of our stuff, all of it right now pretty much has moved virtually online. But pre-COVID, we have something called the Trailblazer Academy, which brings our participants out into the community and gives them vocational training at restaurants and other small businesses in the community, so they can develop those job skills, and the ultimate goal being to gain them employment. And I do their social media marketing. I love it. I actually just got a title change this week, actually. So I really enjoy. Thank you. I really enjoy it, and it's just such a good fit for me because it's something that is near and dear to me. Is advocating for people with special needs and making sure that everyone's voice is heard and that we all have a place in this community and in the world to be able to go out and work and get a job and be successful in life and successful at anything we put our minds to.
Now that kind of leads me into this question perfectly. Last night I saw that you hosted a roundtable to talk about what it's like to have life with CP. What were the biggest that you took from that conversation? And do you plan on a regular basis? And if so, how can other people get involved?
Sure. I stopped my video because it was starting to get a little choppy. But yeah, so as James said, last night was actually, it was the first roundtable that I did. I came up with the idea a few weeks ago to host a roundtable for people with disabilities as a place where we could all just come and talk and discuss pretty much anything going on in our lives, in the world. Yes, last night was consisted of people that I've kept in touch with, whether through school or on social media over the years. But with everything going on in the world and Zoom being the most popular thing on the planet right now, I thought it was a great excuse to bring 5 strangers together. And we all had CP, and just talk about challenges that we face, things that we've gone through. I mean, and it was great to see that everybody's different in the world, right? But we're all still the same. Like we all went through physical therapy. We all got Botox at some point in our lives to help with tension in our muscles. We've all, struggled socially at certain times in our lives. And the cool thing was that it was 4 people that were kind of college age and a little bit, and then post-college. And then there was a father and son, and the son had CP, and Logan's about 13 years old. And so it was cool for us as a group of adults with CP to kind of share some wisdom with someone in a younger stage in their life, but that it's still not so far off that like, hey, we were in your shoes just 10 years ago. So it was really cool, and it turned out better than I expected it to. And we're definitely going to have more of those in the future. I mean, my goal right now, so you figure, I mean, nothing's set in stone by now, but you figure the next one would be towards the end of July. And all of you that are here tonight are welcome to join. You can reach out to me on Facebook. Just search me on Facebook, or my Instagram is Matthew Walzer, and my Twitter is Matthew Walzer 24. And just feel free to send me a message, and I'll definitely reach out to you guys with the Zoom information when the time comes if you're interested in joining. I mean, with everything going on in the world right now, with fighting for equality in this country, which is something that's so important, it's important to make sure that everybody's voices are heard and understood, and our needs are listened to and heard. And sometimes, if I'm being blunt here for a second, I feel like people with disabilities are kind of like the overlooked part of the population. And so I feel like that it's important to make sure that we at least have a group that can come together and can speak freely and openly about things that we're going through and things that we've dealt with in our lives. Because outside of our families, not many people understand us better than us.
I love that, Matthew. In one of the articles covering your story, I read that your team of doctors told your parents that they didn't think that you would survive, and you have definitely defied the odds. So I know we have some medical professionals that are tuning in tonight and may tune in to future YouTube episodes. what advice would you give them when they are treating a patient with CP or speaking to their family members or their parents?
That's a very good question. No two cases of CP are alike. I've learned that in 24 years of being on this planet. And I was reminded again of that last night. No matter how similar we all are, we're all different in some way. For example, and this is just a really quick example, I asked everyone last night, I said, we've talked about physical stuff, but does anyone else here have any vision issues? And everyone shook their head no. And I said, well, I'm blind in my left eye from birth. And they couldn't believe it. And so, and I don't know if I mentioned this before, so while I'm on the subject of vision, I do drive. I have an accessible adaptive van. I don't drive at night just because of some depth perception issues that I have. I just choose not to for safety. But, no two people with any disability are alike, whether it's CP, autism, Down syndrome. And I feel like disabled people are stereotypically put inside of a box that parents are told that this is what your child's life is going to be. I'm using CP as an example here because it's what I know the best, and I wouldn't want to speak for something that I'm not 100% familiar with, prognosis and things like that. But for me personally, it was, I was lucky if I was going to be able to speak. If I was going to speak, it wouldn't be very clearly. I would be, not very mobile. But fortunately, and with the help and persistence of my family, I've been able to overcome a lot in my life. And my mission in life at this point is to continue to advocate for people and make sure that the general population as a whole is aware of what we can do, and that we're not just people that are bogged down in chairs or maybe nonverbal or struggle with other things, and that we aren't capable of anything or speaking up for ourselves, because we are. And I feel like that we're so tossed over. So I think it's important now more than ever that we come together as a community and make sure that our voices are heard.
To piggyback off of that question, you just kind of answered it a little bit. Maybe you could elaborate a little bit more. What additional resources, if you had a crystal ball, would you want to see for people with CP and just disability in general?
Sure. I mean, the first thing I'd want to see is job opportunities. Being a recent college graduate, I love what I do, and I love that we stand for the fact that people with disabilities should be hired, without question. But I feel like there are plenty of people. For example, you could have, and please forgive me to anyone out there, if it seems like I'm generalizing or making assumptions, but you could have autism or Asperger's, but be a complete computer whiz and qualify easily for a job at Microsoft, Apple, or Google. But just because you weren't able to go to a top-notch college and check all the other X, Y, and Z, resume boxes, you shouldn't be passed over. And I feel like I truly wonder, if you survey all these big Fortune 500 companies, how many people with a disability are they hiring? And I'm not just talking about like, attention deficit disorder or ADHD, because yes, those do qualify as disabilities, but I'm talking about disabilities where the challenges are greater. And to anyone listening, I'm not discounting anything, but I'm just speaking bluntly from the heart, where the road to get to A to Z is tougher, but no matter what, you're not going to stop to get to where you want to go. And there's a whole talent pool here in society that's just being tossed over. And it's like, you want to know why, and you want to know like how this can change.
So here at the Adaptive Collaborative Podcast, we believe in what we like to call our 3 Gs: grace, gratitude, and grit. What role do you see these playing in your own personal life?
Well, start with the grit.
How'd I guess you were going to start with it?
Couldn't tell. I've never really let too much like stand in my way. People have always from at a younger age, people always again put me in the box, in the disabled box. Like, I remember going from 5th to 6th grade, and they told me that I shouldn't take advanced classes in middle school because for whatever reason I wasn't able to handle the workload. Meanwhile, I was always an extremely good student, and so and then in 6th grade I got straight A's every quarter. I mean, that's like a really silly example, and that's like a pretty bad one to pick. But I guess for grit, I've never let anything stand in my way, and I've always given things my best effort. But I wouldn't be here without my family, and all the support and love and guidance that they've given me over the years. And they've instilled in me how to be the best advocate for myself that I can be as I've gotten older, and it helped a lot to have that, in college and now in the adult world. And then as far as gratitude, I'm very thankful, believe it or not, to have cerebral palsy, because it's allowed me to see the world from a completely different perspective. But at the same time, it's the only perspective that I know. And so it's shaped my values, and my ideas and my thought processes, and it's afforded me some great opportunities in my life. And I'm really, we all have our moments, as I'm sure everyone does on here. You want to, like, I have my days where it's like, I want to know why, like, why me, why all this and that. But I've learned as I've gotten older to be thankful, because I'm a firm believer in that everything happens for a reason. I was put on, I feel that I was put on this earth this way to make a difference. And then as far as grace, trying to figure out how to answer that differently than the gratitude one. I've always gone through life with a smile, and to be extremely happy. And I think people are puzzled sometimes like, look at this kid. Like, he's always, I'm truly 99% of the time, I'm always in a good mood. I never let stuff get to me. I never complain. I've learned to kind of take it all in stride, and just do the best with what I have. And I think that's a lesson that we can all take from, no matter if it's a disability or anything in life. You just have to learn to do the best with what we have and make the best of. You always have to make the best of a bad situation. Not that our situations
I love that.
bad, not that our situations are bad, but find the good take the good out of the bad, because almost always there's more good than bad.
I love that, and I love all three of those answers, to be honest with you. Now let's backtrack and pause for a second. When you are not inspiring major companies to release a shoe line or inspiring people like you do, what are some of your hobbies?
Well, I've been home a lot. Typically, I guess you can say, well, pre-COVID, always making a point to see my friends from school whenever they're back in town. I started a blog and my own podcast actually in the beginning of the year in January, and I have a few articles up on my blog about some different stories that I've shared about having CP. And then I did record a podcast in February, and since then a lot in the world has changed, and so right now my focus coming off of last night is to continue I really want to continue with the Zoom groups, I'm going to call it, that we did last night, because I feel like there's a lot of potential in that. And I almost feel like it's the equivalent of this. It's more of an open forum rather than just kind of speaking into the void. Because the podcast was just me, and see who listens. Because I feel like when you have an audience like this and you can see people, I feel like it's a better opportunity for real personal storytelling and thoughts and ideas. So I really didn't answer the hobby question, but hobbies, movies, TV, video games, typical stuff. Sports, whenever they're back on, I've been watching a lot of NASCAR because it's like the only thing on. But I'm excited about the Zoom thing from last night, and I'm excited to continue that.
So we want people to be able to follow your blog and your podcast. What are the names of the blog and podcast?
Sure. So if you go, the name of the website is just MatthewWalzer.com. And that's where you'll find the, I had a burrito for dinner and whatever. So
you'll find your burrito for dinner on the website.
I apologize, but that's why I keep pausing here.
No worries.
So at MatthewWalzer.com will take you to the Against All Odds blog. That's what I decided to call my blog, it's different from the one that I put my Nike letter on all those years ago. It's kind of like a reinvigoration of that. And I went with the name Against, and the podcast is the same name, Against All Odds. If it doesn't come up in search, probably you just want to type in my name. But I came up with Against All Odds because I feel like I've been able to overcome a lot of odds in my life. And my parents in first grade, actually a project that my teacher gave them was to write a book about their child, like what their child's life would be like in 10 years. and they called the book that they wrote for me, it was like a colored picture book, like hand illustrated by them. They called the book Against All Odds. And they had it mapped out that I'd become a NASCAR driver, and because that's what I wanted to do at 6, 7 years old, and race with Jeff Gordon, who's my favorite driver. And so the name, as I got older, I started to understand the importance of that title and why they picked it for me all those years ago. So it's something that's very personal to me and very special to me.
Well, you've definitely overcome numerous odds. So let's say there's somebody out there right now, they're really struggling with this COVID thing, CP, another disability. What's some advice that you would give to them to overcome their odds?
Well, you brought up a good point with COVID. I know it's become like a hot button issue, but for the assumption here that everyone wants to stay healthy, that we've been staying home as much as we can, but socially, for someone with special needs, and my parents brought this up a few weeks ago, it's like we've, for the most part, at some point in our lives, we've kind of mastered this whole social distancing thing, and that's like the blunt truth of it. We talked about this last night in the forum that I had. At some point in our lives, we all found it difficult to socialize outside of school growing up. And so now, with social distancing and hopefully staying home, we're all kind of on a level playing field. And that might not be something that people without a disability realize. So I think it's an important message to say that when this is all over, whenever that may be, is that we have to stop socially distancing from people just because they have a disability. And I don't mean that you should be afraid of people, afraid to speak to people with disabilities. I mean, I'd hope that's not the case. But what I mean is make sure everybody's included. Make sure that if you have a group of friends, you're in high school, you guys are going to the movies or going to the beach, and you have a friend in your class who you're really kind to and you're good buddies with in school, just pick up the phone and say, hey, Matt, we're going to the movies or we're going to the beach. Do you want to come? Yeah, sure. Okay, cool. What do you need? What do you need help with? If you're old enough to drive, maybe offer them a ride or maybe arrange something with their family. But don't be afraid to do stuff to socialize with people outside of the normal setting. And I know this isn't advice for someone with CP. This is advice for people that don't have a disability. But for those of you with disabilities, I know this may be a very confusing and frustrating time, as it is for all of us. It's been this way for me. But personally, I have very bad asthma. And I also have a brother that's a little bit high risk. So I don't want to get sick, no matter how serious people say the virus isn't or isn't. So I think we just need to just take things a day at a time, stay connected with one another, make that a good point, to make sure you're staying in touch with your family, that you don't live with your friends. Don't stop. Don't reclude yourself from. Don't get caught up. Don't become. I'm sorry. I know I'm rambling a little bit here, but you can't let the stay-at-home bug get to you, and you just have to ride this out and be patient and stay healthy and take care of yourself. But also make sure that you're staying in touch with your friends, you're staying in touch with your family, that you're going outside and getting exercise, going for walks, going for bike rides, going in the pool if you have one. just kind of, again, like the beginning, make the best of a not so great situation.
Now, us adaptive folk have really, we know how to make the best of a not so great situation. And you brought up a great point of the importance of human connection. And we are so excited that you were here to connect with us and to inspire us. So this is probably the last question before we need to close it for the night. What is next for Matthew Walzer? What goals or projects are you working on, and where can we expect to see your name next?
Well, nothing in particular that's overly big that I'm working on, but as I've said, I've been fortunate enough to work with Nike, and I've also I worked with Tommy Hilfinger a little bit a few years back to help launch their adaptive clothing line. For those of you that don't know, because it's kind of like, oh, like, no, I didn't know Tommy does have an adaptive clothing line called Tommy Adaptive. That's a free plug. But I want to take my advocacy that I've kind of grown into on a personal level and just continue to expand that. You know, there's last night was great, and I had people that don't have disabilities that wanted to be a part of the conversation, because it's all about raising awareness. And I feel like the more awareness that we raise, it'll just keep bubbling up to the top, where, you know, areas that there still needs to be changed, like jobs, like, you know, expanding on adaptive vehicles, like just making parking lots more accessible. Because believe it or not, even though there's handicapped spots, there's plenty of parking lots that just are terrible. I mean, these are just some basic examples of things that I can think of off the top of my head from things that I've gone through. But I just feel like, you know, there's nothing wrong with, as we've seen, a lot of change can happen in this country from just speaking up. And so I feel like as a group of people with special needs, we can't be afraid to speak up, because if we don't speak, then no one hears us.
You're definitely on the right track. And before we wrap it up, does anybody in the audience have any sort of questions for Matt?
Anybody?
Well, Matt, I want to thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for having the courage to write that letter, because it really did change the lives of so many people, me included, Melissa, among millions and millions of other people. So thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time to do this. Melissa, thank you. And I think you want to tease next week's episode. Is that right?
Yes. So
I'm sorry. If I can, before, I just want to say one last thing.
Sure.
Everybody here, whether you have a disability or you have a family member or a friend with a disability, there's nothing in life, and I know this sounds cliche and whatever, but please take this from me personally. There's nothing in life that you can't do. If you want it bad enough, go get it. Because I've learned in life that sometimes the only thing holding you back is your own ambition. And we all have that fear of, you know, what'll happen if I do X, Y, and Z. You know, the only thing that could happen is either A, things stay the same, or B, you make a big change in the world, or whatever you're trying to achieve. And so you can never be afraid to go after what you want in life. Disability does not matter.
so much wisdom for just a 24-year-old. Matthew, we can't thank you enough for joining us tonight. Thank you for being the voice for so many. And we're really excited to see what's in store for you within the next few years. Please keep us informed of your forum. We would love to join and love to get involved. And the nature of the podcast is adaptive collaborative. So we would love to collaborate with you further.
Absolutely.
So I want to thank
Absolutely.
all of you for joining us tonight for this inspiring conversation. Please come back and join us next Tuesday, 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We will have a special guest, Sarah Tuberty. She was a congenital lower arm amputee. She is an aerial artist. She just graduated from Boston University's occupational therapy program, and she is currently in a competition to be a cover model for Maxim.
Wow.
Super talented. She also runs a podcast called Disarming Disability. Please check it out this week so that you'll have questions for Sarah when she joins us next week. Thank you to all of our listeners, and we hope to see you next week.
Thank you, guys. Have a great week.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate you. Take care.
Keep innovating.